Okay, hello. I'm Yumma Mudra. I will speak in English. So I just decided I would quietly start some videos in English, a little bit different from what I'm doing lately in Portuguese, which is more related directly to the practice of intuitive Dharma study. In this case, we'll more relate directly to some sharing of thoughts, general thoughts about society and about life from the perspective of my own experience. I I will see if this does have the potential to be helpful for maybe myself to start with, and maybe more people. Anyway, my motivation is truly to be somehow part of whatever can help all living beings to be free from suffering and to be free also from all the attachment to the causes of suffering or the processes that will provoke suffering. And this is from the Buddhist point of view, which I rely on and also enjoy. So I took a little bit of notes. They're completely random, my notes, but anyway, let's see. I would like to start by talking about which is my perspective, because maybe it's helpful, because I want to engage into some thoughts, thinking, I would say, kind of philosophical, but it's maybe a little bit about society. It's like an holistic overview of what's going on in the world since a few years, let's say mainly since 2019. And I would like to talk about my perspective first, because it's important to understand what somebody is willing to communicate. Where does it come from which perspective? Perspective is a nice word because that's used in art. You have the perspective, no, of when you draw on a flat paper, you're going to paint something with perspective, so you would have this illusion, no, of deepness on this screen or this which, let's call it paper, because sometimes I don't know the words. And it's not really true, okay? So what do I mean by that is that the perspective that we have about things are always somehow biased, because it's completely obvious, but most of us, even if this is obvious, we don't remind ourselves of how much biased is everything we as human beings make interpretation about. So there is not really anything we could assume as being plainly true, the truth. But it is helpful to help each other and to communicate together and to compare the perspectives of all people. If we are willing to listen to each other and to relate to each other from the heart, maybe less engaged, as when I was young I was very much in convincing, but maybe more engaged in understanding that something about the beauty and the deepness of whatever our consciousness is able to perceive will always go beyond whatever it is we could describe. So this is important, because if we talk about society and things that happens in the society and kind of gaslight very easily people nowadays, it's extremely easy to see people getting upset before they even listen to something, or maybe pigeonholing you into some kind of an idea they have about the kind of person you are because you dare to say this or to think about that. and that is not accurate in the sense of wisdom, because in the sense of wisdom, we may understand that all points of view and all perspective together will at the end prevail, because we are just coming through in this life and making our life be part of what this energy camp is creating. So my perspective, of course, is that I've always been a person that has a tendency to, since a young age, to actually see things the way I just said, even if I was much more fiercely engaging and convincing people about my certainties at that time. I remember even as a young child, I was engaging in conversation in Protestant temples, and I would like to be part of debates when I was 9 years old or 10 years old, and I wanted to some kind prove that I had no certainty that death really exists. So that was a funny thing, because they were telling me, yes, yes, yes. They told me lots of things about how death, but I said, yeah, but maybe all of this is true, but maybe I'm not going to die. So you don't convince me. So that was funny, because now if I think about it, to give you an example, if I think about it now, I think I was wrong and right in the same time. So that's very difficult. You're going to say, well, what the hell? You cannot be right and wrong. Yes, of course you can, because it's depending on how do you see it. If you see it from a point of view that is my deep feeling as a child at that time about life, of course my deep feeling was about present, and the present moment is an ongoing, simultaneously, no, being born and being dead. So it's not the sense that something makes your consciousness at one point stop. Of course, your sense of identity could change, but I had that easily in my frame of mind as a child. But the other sense is that I was wrong, because I was just trying to make a point towards grown-up people and to be a little bit challenging them. But I was wrong, of course, because I was not acknowledging impermanence and the fact that all things that do come together end up parting from each other. And they were right about that. So why did I give this example? It's just because I have this tendency to have a kind of a metaphorical and paradoxical mind. So when I explain my point of view, it's quite important to, in this case specifically, because it's going to take a long time. I don't even know if one video will be enough. I have a tendency to go very straightforward into many directions at the same time that will end up at the same place. So it seems that you get lost in whatever it is I'm talking about, but at the end there is a reason why I did talk about all these different things, and that they actually come together like a frame, you know, like when you're creating a carpet or something. If you never created a carpet, you can imagine how it could have been for people doing that. You have lots of strings, and then you have other strings, and then you put more strings, and at the end you have one thing that's a whole. But you did have some kind of a plan, no, of what you were doing, and in the same time there's all this ongoing movement of creating the carpet that is sometimes a color. Maybe if it's in wool, excuse me, you would have the red and the blue and the green and the yellow and the white and the black, and you would be in the yellow, you would be doing this frame and doing this carpet and living things. In the meanwhile, it takes a long time, and at the end you have one object, and that object will have its life, no, going in people's places or people's houses. And but the whole thing that was being lived there was joining together many things that at the end make sense. So that's the way I usually always have a tendency to see things and to talk about things. So you may be patient, And if you don't have time, maybe it's better to come back later because this is going to be a long review. So I will take a look at my little notes as I told you, and let's start about where I come from. Okay, so I am from the very beginning, very long time, dancer and Buddhist. And I think that lately I have felt that my home path always as a Buddhist, which is very rich and very, very, how you say, adventurous somehow, because I have had an adventurous life as a dancer, as an artist. But it has been always stable in my life. My feeling faithful to my Buddhist path. And even at one point when I started to really become very much aware of how much openness the Buddhism was given to my mind, that actually I could not define myself as a Buddhist, because actually it doesn't exist. The word Buddhist doesn't exist in Buddhism. It's a little bit like Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche says, is that the English people, when they went to India, they called the Indians Hindus, but actually Hindu doesn't exist. There's lots of different ways of practicing in India, the different ways of understanding the religions or the yogas, but there's no Hinduism as a whole, one thing. And it's a little bit the same for Buddhist, because actually in Tibetan there's no word to say Buddhist, there's a word to say inner. So actually the Buddhist in Tibetan is said to be like Nangpa, which is somebody who is going inwards, inside, or is, you can interpret as you like. It depends on how you translate the word, no? But it is like something from inside. And it's not like I am part of this club, or I'm part of this this sect, which do have name in this case, like you would say Nyingma or Kagyu, or you would say Sakya. All these different sectors, they are not, how would you say, they are not like schools that are adverse one to the other, even that can happen because human beings are like that, but they are like looking at the practice from a different perspective, or with more insisting on different aspects of the practice. Anyway, so this is where I come from, and as I thought that I was nothing special, I was not a Buddhist even, I actually ended up understanding that I needed to assume I'm a Buddhist because of how people need me to define myself. And that comes to a little bit the conversation I will engage today, because my conversation is going to engage slowly into these issues of gender and these issues also of euthanasia, and the issues even maybe about abortion, which are very delicate issues that I have been a little bit stepping back of talking about them, unless I would be talking only to a single friend in secret. So now I will dare to talk about these. Maybe I will not be able to say everything I wanted to say in this video, but slowly I will how you say, disclose my visions about all these topics. So this is where I come from, but now I am, since I would say 2018 or something like that, I did come up with some kind of a romance, was just an idea that popped up in my life, but it was very long, very old thing that I had, this text, and then I actually worked on it as much as I had a little bit of energy to do that, and it ended up in a romance. And that romance actually does, it's not in English yet, but it's in French and in Portuguese. That romance does actually, it takes place in 2046. So I didn't want to talk about the future. It was not at all the topic. The topic of the book was more about women in relationship to the masculine energy. And that's what the book does talk about. And it talks about it very straightforwardly on the form of a romance. So there are 3 women there. But I did write a little bit inspired by what you would call some kind of first thought, best thought, something that just pops up in your mind. To write in the future, it would happen this and that and that and that. It was just like kind of, like you're creating a theater piece and you need a place and a time and some kind of it's like a mandala. I was creating that mandala for that story. And actually many of the things that I did write in this book actually ended up happening in 2019, 2020, 2021. And now we are in 2023, and it is very confusing to feel, at least this is what I feel from afar, because I'm in a retreat, permanent kind of a retreat. But I do feel like if what I understand of the world is like if there's a big hurt and a big confusion and lots of emotions that are painful, I think, and lots of fear. And so that's why I'm trying my best to share my point of view, because my point of view is not that I would say you should do this or do that or think like this or think like that, but it's more that whatever it is you think or you choose to do or not to do, there is a way that you can feel okay with the universe, okay with yourself, and okay with everything that happens despite the difficult condition that we have on earth as human beings. It's not easy, no? Because we have a very rich condition, we have a very rich mind, we are very elaborate. We like to project concepts and to make them very precise and even sometimes very strongly, how you'd say, assumed. And of course, whatever kind of a concept you assume will automatically make stronger the opposite one. Like if you push a lot on one button, on the white, the black becomes more stronger. And if you push a lot on the black, the white, this is like that. And it's a little bit strange because since the night of times, we all know that actually the world is like that. We know that as a human being, our way of living is with 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 holes in the nose and 2 ears. And we have this spine in the middle of 2 different, right and left. And then we have this in front and behind us. And this, we can also stand up or lay down. So we have lots of obvious situations in our everyday life that does depend on 2 points of view. Even the example is that you look at something, actually you're seeing 2 different versions of something, but you're not really seeing anything. And I can tell you that because I did have brain operation and I did spend a long time seeing double. So I would see 2 things different in the same time, not like if you would see 2 hands, 1 hand that becomes 2, but it would like that more. So if I would see stairs, I would see something that was completely confusing. And I could not manage to spend my days only with one eye or the other, because the doctor told me I had to look with both eyes so that my brain would correct the messages. So that made me interested in the brain. This is just an example. I always got very much interested in everything about the relationship between my life and science and dance and the world. And I think the phenomenal world is really interesting. but I like also to live it in a poetical way. I don't want to be only rational, even though the rational side of it is so entertaining, isn't it? So I I started to look at what the brain is, and actually I had been brain operated, so my brain was something very interesting, specifically that it does have lots of water in there. And I actually, first time I got operated, when they've closed the brain, the skull, it actually didn't work because my body was kind of they put something on your bones to close your skull, but in that case it was a natural product made with the bees, something that comes from the bees. And sometimes I have words in English that are missing, but anyway, from the bees, they have this thing that you can make candles with that. And so it was, my body was eating that thing, and so the symptom of that is that my nose started to sort out water nonstop a little bit, and that was very impressive. So I realized this is not a cold, this is a strange thing, and then I knew that was actually water coming out of my brain, that I had to be operated very quickly again. And so I was interested in this whole phenomena of seeing double and being brain operated. And also, anyway, I couldn't work anymore, so I had to kind of how could I say, enjoy my holidays somehow. And I understood, as I saw things double, that actually as the eye is capturing the light, so actually our eyes, they are catching the light. That's why the eye has this tendency, as the hands when we're a baby, to catch. And there is like two ways of using your eyes. One way is that you catch things, and the other way is that you relax your eye. And this I know because of all the work with Buddha Dharma and with Qigong and with everything I've been practicing in meditation. So when you relax the eye is actually like the whole of your body, but mostly the eye more than the whole of your body, absorbing light. So it is not only looking at things, like catching the meaning of things and trying to make out, what is that? Is it green? Is it blue? Is it a cat? Is it a dog? Is it a tree? Can I go there or not? Is this far or is it close? It's not only doing that. It's also completely open into the whole of space and the whole of light as an eye. And actually you can discover that if you work with your eyes and you relax your eyes. But of course, when I was having this problem, my brain could not anymore make the interpretation of the two messages, rational messages coming from my eyes, because my brain was not connecting the two images. And so it needed to get used to these two. It's not images, actually, it's messages of the light. So these two had to slowly become one. Okay, so that I could see only one person in front of me, if it was you, for example, instead of seeing two of you. But that is something that is a teaching, because I really understood that actually I was not seeing neither of these two things. And the proof was that if I would close one eye, I would catch the glass of water from some place, but if I would close the other eye, I would not see the glass of water in the same place. I would not see it in the same position, but I would actually catch it the same. So the glass of water was actually not really in either of these two places. Of course, if you start to understand that this is the same thing about the touching of the glass and the sensation of drinking, you understand that there is something going on in your perception of your life that is kind of illusory. Illusory? Yeah, it's an illusion. In the same time, it's true. So we're coming back to this thing of two. It's true and it's not really that. and it's also on the right and in the left, but they end up making an interpretation that is useful so that my body can go along in this kind of a reality where it is now. My eyes can catch things and make a rational map of these things, but it can also be aware of the whole of space and the whole of light without this rational. So when you do, for example, work with your eyes and understand that, you become much more precise, because you're not looking at things anymore. You look at space, and things are in space. So this makes your way of understanding life much less relating to your certainty that whatever you are looking at and you're thinking is your affirmation of your identity. You start to understand that actually you are in a journey. And in that journey, you are discovering things, but everything you discover undoes itself. It's there and then it undoes itself. And the journey itself is what is showing to you the real nature, the deepest nature of your mind, which is none of these definitions. So why am I talking about that? It's because now, of course, as a Buddhist, as a practitioner devoted to the Tantra path of Vajrayana, the Tibetan Buddhism, it's okay, it's my problem. I don't even have to talk about it. But what happens now is that I think we came to a point, and I'm not the only one thinking that. I was quite happy to see there's more like scientists and people that are not Buddhist actually talking about this, is that we came to a point as a humanity that we were living all together in that idea that science, like the science took the place of religion somehow. So religion was not only religion, intuition, everything that was about not being scientific was wrong, or maybe wrong, or not so. Maybe, okay, it's nice, poetry is nice, but let's give money to creating a military complex, not for the culture and the poetry. Why would you give some money? Anyway, poetry is not as you cannot make as much money with poetry as you can make money with Picasso. So maybe Picasso is more, you earn more money. So the whole society became like that. No, it was not anymore about trusting some kind of intuitive relationship with phenomena, which can be wrong but can be right also. It was more trusting science, okay? And it does work in a certain frame of reality. It works. It's just that at one point they came to this discovery. No, I interpret it. I can make the interpretation from what I understand, that somehow when Einstein started to say it's relative, and in the same time we discover that, of course, the time and the rhythm of time depends of how fast you're going or how slow you're going. So it's about space also. So the whole thing is relative. And so you start to understand that reality is relative. The relationship between what we call time and space. And then slowly we start to understand time doesn't really exist the way we think it is, but space neither does. And so you start to get into that reality, and then we go into this quantic observation of the smallest, because we were always in the biggest, and now we go in the small, small, small. And then we come to that point, that even the atom is not the end of it. And then we start to discover a world where things are actually not that solid. And there is something that I think is very important. I don't want to go too much in this quantic thing because, of course, it's very interesting, but many people are much better than I am to talk about this. So you should go to them. I was actually, I put his name here, very interested in Rupert Sheldrake. But anyway, there's much more people that have posted very, very good videos about quantic energy and physics, quantic physics. But what I did think was really very, very interesting, and that I think is not enough we don't take enough consideration of that, and actually was confirmed by Psychologic, because Psychologic is also, you know, it's like trying to read the minds of people and the energies. It's between your body and between your mind, but actually you cannot make it that scientific, you know. You can make a little bit, but it doesn't work that much, you know. Even healthcare is difficult, no? Because I could give you an example. My own mother, she smokes since ever a lot, and she drinks so much, and she's not 100%, but she's there, 80 years old, and she's full of energy. So, and I have been much more, maybe I did a little bit of stupid things, but I have been very often taking care of my health and of this and that, and actually I had more problems than she had. So it's not always that much, you know, that you can control, that you do understand the psychologic of somebody, and that you can stick on somebody that he has this kind of problem or that kind of problem. It's not really like that, because actually all the psychological problems that people have, actually I have them potentially, more or less, you know. It's just how much you get driven into the fantasy of your mind, or if you don't get driven into that. So this is where practice for the Buddhist is very important, because the craziness of discovering that the world is in the same time material and solid and relies on laws, and discovering that actually it's made of many things that don't rely on these laws, that's driving us crazy. And this is where the Buddha Tantra Vajrayana, it becomes really interesting, because Buddha, the Guru Rinpoche, Buddha Padmasambhava, second Buddha for Tibetan people, he always said that Vajrayana is, and particularly in relationship with the sector of the mandala, which is called Padma, which is related to the red color and to the love, to compassion and to the light, the pure light. He always said that in our modern times, when we would get a little bit out of our minds and maybe forgetting about wisdom and forgetting about the things really essential to our goodness, that actually this practice would be very accurate for us. And I really understand nowadays why. When I was younger, I didn't understand why. Because Vajrayana is a practice that is known as being dangerous, and it's known that you can really actually get crazy practicing that if you're not centered, and if you don't establish some kind of stability of mind before you enter into the whole setup of magic, the magic sacred world of Vajrayana. So what as I'm saying is that you have these two kind of sciences, the quantic one and the material one. And in the quantic one, you discover that thing that I think is so important we should really rely on, which is that everything we see depends on ourselves, how we see it. And that is actually what happened in the laboratory. That's what they discovered. Maybe not when they were in the traditional physics, but when they got into the quantic physics, they started to see that what happens depends on who, on the fact that somebody is looking at it, is observing it. So maybe, and that's in psychologic also, we understand that actually when you ask three people what happened, the three people don't remember the same thing. So we maybe should understand that we are creating a society because we're so powerful as human beings. We create houses and cars, and then we create bombs, and then we create, I don't know, it's never ending. It's extraordinary, and it's also a little bit like frightening, no? How many things and movies and all these things we do. Like now I'm looking at my house and everything I see is it comes from human beings. There's a cat. That's maybe there's an ant or a fly. That's it. All the other things I can see have been somehow put together by human beings. Of course, there's some stones. They were really stones, but human beings took them and cut them and made a house. So all of these things we do is so powerful that we just sometimes completely forget that nature itself is extremely, extremely beyond whatever it is we think we understood. But we are that. So, and we see things depending on how much we make them like that. Of course, it's a little bit frightening to understand that and realize that, but if you relax and you understand that you can trust the fact that things do themselves, like the Indians, Lakota, they say things take care of themselves. Things do themselves. So we don't need to control everything. We maybe need to have some kind of a control on ourselves. I mean, ourselves in the sense that at one point when you're born with your body, you have something there that is your tool this time. And this is the tool that you got. And that's with this tool that you can make something out of it. And so this is when I'm coming into the next step. I hope I was clear enough about what I was trying to give as a perspective. The perspective of the two eyes, the perspective of the duality, the perspective of also practice of the magical, sacred world, how useful it can be, because it is relying on the fact that we could all become completely out of our minds if we don't settle down in a practice. I'm not saying you have to practice the same I do. I'm just saying that we need some kind of settlement so that we can rely with the diversity and the magical display of phenomena, since we are becoming so much, how would I say, skilled into technology and unskilled into our own technology, which is the nature of yourself. I mean, without anything, just as you are, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. Of course, we think that our habits is ourself and we need this identity. So we do need a sense of our identity, and on the same time, our identity is not that fixed, because every day changes. Like I had long hair, now I have short hair. This is a little change, but actually I was young, I get old, things like that. I was healthy, the day after you're not, all these things. And though, so you're going to say, oh, I was born in a body and that body is not my body. I'm not I'm in the wrong body. Excuse me. I'm not making fun of anybody. It's just a funny idea to think that's true. It's impossible. It's impossible. Because look at the earth. You just have to relax a little bit about yourself. And look at the earth, look at the moon, look at the sun, look at all of this. It's amazingly perfect. It's incredible. Of course, you could say, yes, it's not perfect that, animals eat each other and human beings are so weird and all these things are full of pain and suffering and meanness. Of course, this is where human beings maybe has a choice to do some kind of good in the sense of relieving a little bit, to create relief from the habit of being myself. I cannot get out of that habit of me as I am, and I have to hang on to it. So of course, on the first, like they call it teenager. Actually, I don't believe in teenager. I think teenager is something we invented, but anyway, because, you know, you're a child and then suddenly starts to work that you could have a child yourself. So biologically, it's like if you need to become able to be responsible as soon as you have the ability to make children. But that's not how we are living, no. We created the teenager problem. That's one of our creations. So we need this sense of identity, like, you know, like sometimes you need something, a stick to help you walk in, or maybe sometimes you're on a bicycle. I remember when I was a kid and I had these two little wheels on the sides, but actually I thought I need them. But one day somebody told me, but your two wheels are not even touching the floor. I didn't even need them since the beginning, but I had this belief I needed them. So of course, no problem. Why not? But if you really contemplate how much the world is incredibly, incredibly marvelous and incredibly beyond whatever is it I can understand, but I am that in the same time. I am like, you know, like a tip of that wave that's called me in the ocean of everything. And that if I relax about that and I don't want to always control all of it, and I can have a sense of trust into the fact that things are auto-generated, auto-ruled. Some organisms, they auto-do themselves. Like in my mother's belly, I kind of happened. You know, my father and my mother had this thing, and then I came. But nobody did that in the sense of there would be some kind of somebody making that this person would have these eyes and would be like this and like that. And you know, of course, you see, we're going to come to this technologic problem. It's a problem. We're having a problem, you know, because we think we're going to be better if we control something that really doesn't need to be controlled. What needs to be controlled is ourselves, in the sense of the competence, like, I don't know if that's in English, like you do have the ability, you were born to be yourself, so you can take care of that form. And if you think your body is not the right body, it's just because you have been everything. You have been woman, you have been man, you have been snails, you have been cats, you have been dragons, you have been whatever it is, you have been stones, and you have been birds, and you have been worms and turtles. And actually, you know, if you're an artist, if you really concentrate, you can very easily become all of these things, even if it's just imagination. As an artist, and I did as a dancer do that, you can imagine you're a tree. Just work a few years on it and you feel like a tree. So that means as a dancer, you're going to feel you're rooted, but in the same time, your roots go everywhere, and then this goes everywhere, and then there's this torsion. Then you start to feel that inside of your human condition, there is a tree. So I don't need to become a tree because I am a tree, as you know. Come on, this is nonsense. And you don't need to impose on people that they have to call you tree because you felt that you were a tree for 2 or 3 years. Okay, relax. Just be a tree do your tree thing. And don't annoy everybody about it, because we're not in the moment of this human condition that you could not experiment on your own, feeling that you are whatever it is your feelings are. But the body you have is a treasure, even if you have this memory that you have been something else. Like, for example, I'm a woman. I am a woman, but I never felt I was a woman, you know. It's just that suddenly I had to ask myself, what the hell is that? You know, and then, well, okay. And then why not, you know? But actually, as a person, I feel I'm also a man and I'm also a woman. I feel actually I'm even a couple. It's okay. You understand? But the more I can assume this physical form, the more I can relax with it, so that it gives me It gives me like a vehicle, you know, like a ship, you know, that I can travel. This is my ship. I don't really need to identify with it forever. That's the ship I have to take care of for some time until it's going to die. And you know, this thing of wanting to be eternal and live forever is some craziness. Human being has always did bad things because of that. And it always ended not that good. So actually, if you're a young person, if any young person would listen to me, get interested in history a little bit, or try at least to find people. Some people are really nice talking about history. So you can start to see that whatever is happening now, that we think we could control life and control death and control how people are going to be born, or they're going to be born. We're going to control the color of their hair if there's a man, or everything, and then we're going to not die. All of this never ever gave a good something in what we at least have been sharing as our mythological memory of humankind. So of course there is a lot of illusion into what we sense as the truth. There is also a lot of illusion into the lies of people who do take advantage of the stupidity of many others to make them apply the kind of conflict that makes them able to fulfill their eagerness for power and money, and to make them fulfill their eagerness for eternity of their own power and money. Don't be stupid. So before you change the body you have, wait. Before you make some kind of a drastic cut in your sex or whatever it is you want to cut of your body, wait. You don't have to rush as a young teenager to do that. You can wait a little bit. It's okay. You don't have to believe everything people say. You just maybe take whatever it is I'm saying and try to feel if that can make any sense in helping you. What is helpful in the sense of relying to your own body is that your body, as it is, has a lot of skills and a lot of ability that have not been trained. And you would say, oh, I don't want to train. I want to look at avatar. So avatar, this is another thing, no, like technology. So technology, I have an avatar. So this is what happens. No? But you know, in my practice, you have avatars too. It's just that you don't need to give up the comfort of being yourself, because you can have lots of avatars. We call it yidam, or we call it divinities. You can even in your secret meditation, you can feel that your body becomes something else. You can dream. You can also dream, and in your dreams become another form. And you can feel the strength of that form and then come back to yourself. But you need to establish the steadiness of your synchronicity between your mind and your body, so that your mind obeys somehow to the deepest intuition of the wisdom that is whispering inside of you. Whispering, you have to listen. Yeah, it's shouting. So how can I do that? Well, be patient and just rely on wisdom of many people who know what it is about. And it doesn't change just because we have cars and just because we have airplanes. It doesn't change anything. It just makes it quicker to have problems. You're just getting very quick, you know? So, of course, you can look at, you know, TV, or then you can look at, put you in plants and you will see things, and then you can even get completely drugged into some kind of a Walt Disney avatar world. Of course you can. Then you get confused, and then you try to do shaman this and shaman that, and then you do this, and then you do another thing, and then you think you have to find some kind of a solution. But no, the thing from the beginning is just yourself. There's nothing else. You just have to rely on some kind of a practice that makes you go along with yourself steadily. And how could I say? It's not always comfortable, of course. Why? It doesn't have to be. It's not about comfort, but it is about more that you can get into this sense of the trust. This is the earth. It's the sense of earth is the sense of trustness. When you see the earth is incredibly fertile and rich and stable, even if it sometimes shakes. When it shakes, it's because the energy makes it shake. And it's the same with the water. The water is usually, like if it's quietly there, it's like a mirror. You can look in the mirror, you can see something, you think it's yourself. It's just the light on the water. Or you can see, you put water in 10 recipes and you will see 10 times the moon in the water. There will be 10 moons in the water reflected. But if you splash the water, no more moon, finished. No more me, finished. You see? So the elements, when they get, squeezed, they become very, the fire and the earth. And that's yourself. So, or emotions, when they get out of hand, they get completely wild. And we think, yes, wild is good. Wild is fantastic. Wild, because somehow this wildness that we feel makes us feel alive. But maybe you can feel the wildness and not let yourself be driven by duality. The duality is when you think that your eye, you remember the eyes? The right eyes is right and the left was wrong. No, they're both right. Yeah. They were both right in my case. And now I usually see only one image. It's just sometimes I see a little bit weird, but they managed to go together because at one point there is something incredible in nature that it repairs itself. It's trying to go towards wisdom and going towards harmony. And especially this human beings, we have this thing that we really love to love. We love the sensation of being loved. I see even cats, they love it. And even snakes, they like to be loved. It's incredible how much animals likes to be loved. But we really love to be loved and to love. So that's our speciality, and we should really engage in it. But we should engage in it from the perspective of wisdom, much more than the perspective of me, myself, and I, as something that never changes, that is completely fixed, and that is completely out of everything else, which is not. Every second we breathe, and all the time the water comes out and in of our body, and it's changing. And like 7 years later, there's nothing left that was the same, and you call it me. So you relax with this overwhelming sense of huge reality because your consciousness is incredibly omniscient. But you don't need to own it. And you don't need to get confused about it, because actually that's why your body is a little bit, heavy. It's because it gives you a place where your mind can learn how to relax, and not to always be in the sense of defending and of creating, because you cannot just be. You understand? What does it mean to be? Yeah, it doesn't mean that you become a vegetable and that you're not able, that you're not able, your mouth is like you cannot even shut it or smile anymore. No, it's not like that. But it's this sense of to be, is that suddenly you understand that you feel really, really good beneath all this busyness and all this emotional entanglement. Of course, I know when I was younger, I had all of it. I don't have it so much now because I worked on myself. So I still have my issues, but it's not the same as when I was younger. But I always trusted that there were people that did it, and there were people that left, they left drawings and they left poetries and they left teachings. And this is what we call a living lineage. The living lineage is that it is alive. You have poetry, you have dances, you have lots of things, but it is alive because it does go through the bodies of many human beings. That's what you call a lineage. So when you are with your lineage, you are with all of them, and in the same time they are all you, and then you realize that all of this is everything and it's overwhelming, and you just relax, and then you don't need to worry because there is something that makes you kind of common sense. Just open the door if somebody comes because he wants to come in, and you open the door. You don't need to worry about what is it you're going to do next, because you're going to do it very well when you are this in this sense of being, and much less worrying and much less how would I say defensive, and much less like needy. Oh, and so complaining. Oh, complaining. My God, nowadays it looks like they're reaching the highest peak of how complaining could be so fancy. It's horrible. Stop complaining. Whatever you did suffer, of course you did, and of course many people do, and it's the fate of material incarnation. If you have been many incarnations, you have done many horrible things, and you have done many good things. So at one point, why would you not sometimes be subject to difficult situations as a man or as a woman too? Of course, it doesn't mean that you have to agree that people do bad things, but it doesn't mean that you have to become completely hysterical about revenge or hysterical about punishment. It doesn't make any sense, because when you spend many years always complaining and always wanting to punish, and you're just feeling bad. You're just spilling out poisons. It's like if whatever happened to you became your child. So, as a woman, remember that. Please, ladies, remember that. If we want to be helpful to ourselves and to the world, we cannot indulge into thinking that every kind of wild revenge and wild things what we would like to imagine, that we are so powerful and so I don't know, voluptuously fierce. Okay, but maybe, when it's the moment, you just give a little fierce thing because that's the good moment. It's like opening the door. But we don't have to identify with this kind of stuff, I am the great goddess of what? Come on. We complain that there was a patriarchat, the man think that they were something superior. We shouldn't do the same thing, At one point, it's like stepping out of childish, needy complaints. It's very important, because that's where you start to understand that actually your real child is there. There's something childish about ourselves, even when we get old. And that is a happy person. The innocent child is happy. And, I cannot pretend that harsh things didn't happen to me. Oh, yes, they did. Many of them. I'm not going to tell any of it now, but they did. And a lot of them. And to my family and to people that I'm close to, I did experience very, very horrible things. Yeah. But I don't need to kill my inner innocence, my child. You understand? And if I'm complaining all the time, and if I'm always feeling resentful about this, no psychiatrist is never going to help me. No drug is going to, nothing's going to help me if I don't help myself. And how do you help yourself? Get out of it. You get out of that resentment thing. And don't think you have to be a goddess to be okay. You don't need, you are a goddess sometimes, and sometimes you're not. It's just everybody, we're all like that. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about. I think I didn't get into the details about war and about, seeing the whole life as a dance. This is the things I wrote down. I wrote down many things, but I think it's enough for today. I see if I talk a little bit more about all these things, if it makes any sense. Of course, what I would maybe like to make my conclusion here is that in the sense of what I feel as my practice, I am very at awe with the beauty of the lineages and all the transmissions, because it's step by step that you discover that whatever it is that you started to practice from the very beginning had the whole precious treasure was there since the beginning. But it's only with time and practice that you start to understand how beautiful this process is. And for that to be possible, it's very important to keep the commitment to your string, as you're doing your carpet. You have to keep the commitment to that string. Otherwise, you do a little carpet and a little other thing, and you never finish any of them. And the commitment to your string is about ourselves, that if we did start to follow a path and to find the people and the means that we really needed, not to find a solution, because you're not a problem in your own right. You're not the problem. It's more that you find the means to just let go of whatever is not needed in your habits, physical habits, energy habits, energetical habits, emotion, and of course mental habits. And then that's allowing you to slowly get in touch with the nature of your own being, and the nature of because the nature of your own being is the nature of all life. And it's overwhelming, it's impossible to describe, but you can make a poetry, you can make a dance, you can make a music. You can make yourself the center of radiance that is good for the others, that's good for everybody. And it doesn't have to be a pretense, like saying I apply to this group because they're helping and you don't help, but I'm helping. No, it's not like that. It's just to be, and then from there, you decide, when you open the door, when you close the door, you decide from this growing sensation of stillness of your mind and dynamic of your energies in relation with the body. And that, of course, takes training. Of course, I can recommend very good Qigong. I can recommend very good yoga, real teachers, not people that just had a diploma after 3 years. No. And even less a person that had the diploma from another that have the diploma in 3 weeks. Come on. No. Choose this good lineage, this good people, or maybe you're able to go a little bit with this, and then after a few years to the other. Don't change every 5 seconds, and understand that what you're working with is always yourself, and that your body starts to be able to breathe, starts to be able to settle, but also able to move, and able to experience your voice, able to express. Maybe you make a drawing, maybe you make a song, or maybe you just cook. Maybe you just take care of flowers. Anyway, you can also be a businesswoman or a businessman. Anything at all is okay. But it is very important as human beings to understand that we are powerful. We are creating all the time this reality that we think is the true one. And we are getting misleaded by ourselves and then misleaded by others because we don't take time to settle a little bit down in our mind. This is something that is very, very personal. It doesn't mean that you have to suddenly, maybe you do, but the Buddha did. The Buddha, he sit and he said, that's it, I'm done. I just sit, I'm done. The Buddha has a really extraordinary process, if you look at it, no? He just sat, but after working a lot, with a lot of wishful heart, he suddenly got enlightened when he stopped. And it's very interesting because he did only walk and beg and meditate and had some nice time with his friend and then walk again. He never took a car, he took a horse once, from the story. He didn't even have shoes. But anyway, if you have another kind of a path than the Buddha and that you want to do lots of things, why not? That's it's not that you have to look like the Buddha, but at one point it is important to find this sacred commitment with yourself that you do have every day, all the time, a relationship with yourself, a relationship that is not about talking in your mind. It's about breathing, it's about dreaming, it's about eating, it's about how are you together with yourself in a very mindful goodness, presence. And if you find that difficult, it is, because we have been educated to not be like that. But it's okay. Why not train? Whatever you want to do, you will train anyway. And, people that are really good at things, they all end up with mindfulness. So if they're a really good actor, a really good driving an airplane, a really good warrior, a really good dancer, a really, really good singer, a really good diplomat, I don't say politician, diplomat. If they're really good, they trained and they did reach a state of mindfulness. Otherwise, they're not really good at it. And then also maybe try to have some values. What are your values? Do you think it's right to just kill whatever bothers you? Do you think it's right to just lie all the time? Do you think it's just right to insult people because they don't think like you? Do you think it's right to get upset every 5 seconds because of whatever it is, that you're becoming so touchy about everything? Do you think it's right to complain? Look at your values. What is your values? Do you feel you can commit to certain things that makes your merit grow? Yeah? The virtue is important because this is what gives you good land. It's like growing your plants. The plants, they don't grow that good on a land that's not kind of rich. So the richness of your land is the merit. There's no doubt about that. The more you feel merit and you feel virtue possible coming to you, the more it's easy to deal with myself and the more it's easy to deal with everything coming. And then maybe I don't need that much to be very rich and very famous because anyway, I'm already fulfilled. I feel rich without so much money, and with so much money just feel anxious. Okay, so this is what I wanted to share. I hope it will be useful. I think my English is not too bad. And well, anyway, if you did enjoy and if you did come to the end, maybe make a little comment. I would enjoy to have a conversation with you on the comment. And that's it. We'll see. Bye-bye.